There's no doubt that many of us struggle when it comes to cutting sugar out of the diet, or at least cutting it down. I don't know if you can cut it completely out. I'd go crazy, I think. Valentine's Day just around the corner, and that's when we tend to overindulge, Shelly.
Yes.
And I find out of all the things, like I can cut out my potatoes and I can cut out wheat, not eat bread, but I find it really hard to cut out sugar.
Yeah, it's a huge problem, right? Epidemic problem, sugar in our society. And it becomes a very vicious circle because the more sugar you eat, the more sugar you crave. So looking at it from physiology, what happens is every time we eat carbohydrates in general, any carbohydrates, ultimately once they're digested and absorbed, they become sugar.
And we tend to eat way too many carbohydrates in our diet, as you're mentioning there, right?
Absolutely.
All of us do that. So.
Most of us do, yeah. So once that sugar gets into your blood, your body will make insulin. That's our hormone that helps get the sugar out of your blood and put it into your cells where it can be used for energy. We don't want sugar to stay in our blood. That's where it becomes a problem. So the more sugar we eat, the more insulin we make to get the sugar out of our blood. But the problem with that is the more insulin we make, the more insensitive our cells become to the insulin. So the more sugar you eat, the more insulin you make, the more insulin you make, the more insulin you need.
Yeah, absolutely vicious cycle.
Yeah.
There. So what do we do? Like, how do we kind of weed out as having too much sugar in our diet and stay with it? Because I think that's a lot of the problem. People will try it and they just can't stick with it.
Yeah, and that's so I tell people the goal with blood sugar control is to minimize that insulin. Because with less insulin, you get better insulin sensitivity and you avoid those really big peaks and valleys of blood sugar control. Because when your blood sugar bottoms out, that's when you crave sugar. And that's what makes sugar such an addiction. So really, as you eat sugar and your insulin sort of chases it, and then you crash, and then you crave that sugar again.
And then you want it again, and then you go up, and it's just, as you said, this big roller coaster ride.
So therapeutically, we sort of focus on two things, balancing blood sugar and improving insulin sensitivity.
So how do we do that?
So diet-wise, we tend to focus on a couple of different diets. One is like a ketogenic diet. It avoids it avoids refined carbohydrates in general, but focuses, those low-carb diets. It is that in essence, but you want to focus the carbohydrates you do eat on the high-fiber complex carbohydrates. So focusing your intake on things like protein.
Okay.
Protein will help replace some of those calories that are typically in most North American diets coming from carbohydrates and has no insulin effect. So protein, lean, clean proteins are helpful. Protein shakes are great.
Yeah, lean, clean protein.
Yes, and then healthy fats. So there is a difference when we talk about fat. Some are really good for you, some are not. So we want to focus sort of on the whole food, unsaturated fats, omega-3, omega-6, fish oil is a good example. So are things like olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, and nut and seed oils, because that will help to make us feel full longer.
Great.
And help improve insulin sensitivity.
And then there are some supplements. And
yes.
PGX I've heard a lot about, and you may have as well at home. And I'm thinking, is this a good thing? Is it another fad?
Great thing.
What do you think? So yes, I'm going to ask the expert. You say it's a great thing. What is this doing for us?
So we don't advocate a whole lot of supplements for blood sugar control. We focus more on functional foods, protein, fat, healthy fiber. So PGX is a healthy fiber. It's a viscous fiber. So what that does is create a gel in your gut, ultimately lowering the glycemic index of the foods that you've eaten. So your body has to digest through the fiber before it can digest the sugar.
Cool.
So it minimizes those peaks and valleys. It sort of levels it off, makes it a little bit more reasonable so we're not having those dips.
So would you take this with each meal?
You can. So this, because it lowers the glycemic index of your food, it works best if you're going to have a carbohydrate-based meal. But you can get this in meal replacements like shakes. You can get this in capsules. Great to throw in a purse, keep in the car,
with you, right?
Going out, on Valentine's Day dinner.
Yes.
And then you can also get granules, which are really, really helpful if you are going to have a high carbohydrate meal like pasta, for example, or oatmeal. You can add the granules to your pasta sauce. You can add them to your oatmeal. You can add them to the foods that you're eating.
Interesting. That's great. I'm really glad to hear that, because I was on the fence of whether or not to even look at trying this. But a great way to sort of help your body with this type of thing. But what about natural foods that we can include that might help with that imbalance?
So the two that probably get the most attention are chia seeds.
Okay.
That's the one. Works very similar to PGX. It's a viscous fiber, so lowers the glycemic index of food. And fiber in general will also make us feel fuller longer. The other one is cinnamon. And cinnamon works.
Great things about cinnamon.
That actually helps by improving our insulin sensitivity. So we get that sugar out of our blood a little bit more efficiently.
Now, just before we go, because I know that, again, this is a big one for people, how do you say no to all of that beautiful chocolate or candy or whatever that's coming your way, or the baked goods? I know a lot of people just, I mean, I'm one, like I see a cookie, I just want it. What do you do?
I don't think you have to say no. I don't think you have to say no.
How do you say no to having more than one?
Yeah.
Well, that's the bigger question.
And that
right?
is the key when you're trying to balance off insulin.
Sure.
Your first 3 days, when your peaks and valleys are really, really high with blood sugar control, people's first couple of days, they feel terrible. But if you can get past those first 3 days where your insulin levels off, the cravings go away. They
That's
really
what
do
I
go
hear.
away.
It's just getting, because I tell you, you feel awful.
Power
I think
through
I've
those
never
first
gotten
3 days.
through those first 3 days, right? So really great information on this. You guys are awesome. You've got so much to add to our viewers, and also if people want, they can head to Full Circle for more information. You guys have workshops that go on all the time. You've got supplements if that's the thing, or meal replacements. You can just really help people. So if you're looking to get healthy, it's a good place to go. FullCircleHealthcare.ca, 131 Upper Centennial Parkway, and that's in that big plaza. What's that plaza called?
Well, it's called the Highland Plaza. Most people know of it as the Boston Pizza Plaza.
The Boston Pizza Plaza. Somehow that does not work with Full Circle Healthcare.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. We'll see you in
Linda.
about another month.
Yep.